Even if you're not a football fan, hang in with me here for just a second. In football, typically as you get closer and closer to the end zone, there's a spot called the red zone. Now, the biggest thing that happens when you get into what they call the red zone is typically as we get all the way down the field, we put in all of that work to get to where we're trying to go. The problem with the red zone is that's typically when most mistakes are made. Watch this video and find out how in our own retirement planning journey, how we might need to watch out for the red zone. Hey everyone, it's Logan Sadler. Thanks again for stopping by the Financial Beat YouTube channel. In today's video, we have a great addition for you guys here today where we're going to talk about what we call in our industry the red zone, okay? Again, we're not going to talk about football in this video. This channel is intended for retirement education, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. The red zone is a very interesting time in a lot of pre-retirees and retirees' lives where typically you've done all of the hard work to get to where you're trying to go, right? Typically you're in maybe your 50s or you're in your 70s, depending on when we start the red zone. It's typically around a 20-year period that is 10 years before retirement and 10 years after retirement. So if you're in that red zone category, you really need to pay attention to this video and really make sure you're taking the proper steps to accomplish and not fall into some of these mistakes we're going to go over. Okay, so the first 10 years of before retirement and the last 10 years, those are very, very important to retirement because there's a lot of different categories you could fall into. Typically, let's go if we're going to retire at age 60, this would make our beginning years age 50 to 60 and then 60 to 70. Those are very, very crucial components there to the red zone because let's go through the first stage. From 50 to 60, a lot of you watching this video that fall into that category, you're going through a couple different things. Either your kids are now out of the house, you've now have time to maybe save more money. Some of you might be taking advantage of that, some of you might not. Some of you might have kids going to college and you're trying to fund that. There's a lot of different categories that fall into that early retirement or early red zone period where we're trying to kind of gear up. One thing I always see for that age group that really becomes, kind of a shocker to them is all of a sudden it's kind of go time, right? I mean, you're typically about 5 or 10 years away from retirement at that point. And those years, you're probably thinking the last 30 went quick. This next 5 is going to go really quick. And that's true. One thing we see is, again, I'm a financial advisor, so meeting with a lot of our clients that are in that red zone, it's typically when you want to really start becoming aware of finances. Okay, that first 5 to 10 years beforehand is so crucial because what happens? Typically at that point, you're not able to take as much risk as you might have before. Because what's the one thing they say when you do take a risk out there, whether it's real estate, investments, whatever it is, typically they always say you have time. Well, now the problem is we might be at a point where we don't have as much time as we had previously. We're not in our 20s, 30s, or 40s anymore. So it becomes a very crucial time. The other mistake I see a lot of time out there is we might have 10 different retirement accounts out there. You might have a couple 401ks, a 403b here, might have started a new 457 at this job, and we have no idea what some of those are invested in. Meeting with clients when they come in for our discovery meeting, I'll ask them what retirement accounts do you have, and some of them will be able to name them, but they definitely, most of the time, don't know what investments they're in or kind of how they worked or how they've performed. And what I always say is, if you have this investment, you got it in your 20s or 30s, it's probably not the right mix of assets for you at this time. You really need to start gathering and consolidating assets. I see it all the time where they might have 5 or 10 different accounts out there like I talked about, and we might be able to consolidate all those into 1 or 2 different accounts and still accomplish diversification, all the other stuff that a lot of clients are worried about. So consolidation as you're getting closer and closer is very important because now we want to be more aware of what type of monies we have and make sure each of our monies now has a purpose. The next is not understanding what's coming. A lot of us do a budget maybe when we're 20s or 30s when money's tight. As we start to make more money, our budget becomes looser and looser because no matter what, at the end of the month, we still have money left over, right? Or most of us do. So the biggest thing is what you want to do is, I ask people all the time, what do you need to live on if you could retire tomorrow? A lot of them don't know the answer to that question there. Whether they say, oh, I spend $10,000 a month, or I need $5,000 a month to pay all my bills. A lot of people don't know the basic living expenses they need. Why that's important is because a lot of financial advisors, I know a lot of people think that they're trying to be very tight on you and telling you to put more money away. Yes, that's true sometimes, but the other thing is also you need to know what type of expenses you're going to need if you did retire. What are we saving for? Again, you want to save with a purpose to understand what our retirement goal is, okay? So those are some of the leading indicators as you're building up. The most important one to me is typically investment risk. A lot of us have changed our investment risk tolerance as we get a little bit older. Again, not every investor does, but a lot of you guys do, because you're really worried about, well, I have X amount of money, $1 million, $2 million, whatever the amount is. How much of a return is worth me risking that whole amount? We start to ask that question. Now let's talk about the next 10 years. You're out, you're traveling. It is a really, really crucial time of retirement, because yes, you're retired, you did it, you made it through that long journey, but a lot of people don't really have a go-to investment plan, a go-to income plan, and a lot of people haven't charted out, yes, this income's great now, but how long could this last? What happens if a market takes a turn? How does that affect my investments? What happens if my spouse passes away? How does that affect my investments, my income? All of those things need to be considered when you're really building out that retirement plan and you're in that red zone. So a lot of you guys out there, as you guys know by now, if you watch some of our other videos over here on the YouTube channel, that I can go on about this topic for days, because the before retirement and the after retirement, those first 5 to 10 years of each of those categories is very, very important. So if you haven't by now, again, check out our other videos. There's more and more to come each week. But one thing I need to really point out is if you haven't sat down with an advisor and really kind of ironed out that income plan, really got the game plan, we call it a retirement blueprint here. You want to make sure if you're getting ready to retire 5 to 10 years out, that you have a blueprint of what that looks like. You're not just hoping you retire. You know the mathematical facts and how that's going to look. Okay, so if you haven't done that yet, obviously we're financial advisors, would be happy to help you. So again, thanks for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you on next week's video. Again, if you haven't, go ahead and click subscribe. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks.